Given the current financial situation here in Vallejo and the large number of layoffs to both firefighters and police officers, is there any funding available at the state level or any legislation that you could put forward to help supplement the city of Vallejo's public safety to put more police on the streets? More particularly, is there anything that California Highway Patrol can do to help the public safety within the city of Vallejo?
No, I don't believe there is anything at all. I don't think the state of California, personally, has the capacity to fund what it needs to fund. And I think because of terrible mismanagement in the state of Sacramento, we're plagued with this situation. And we keep kicking the can down the road, like I said before. This current budget, our total cuts, and you know, we started out this current budget with a $19 billion deficit, $3 billion in additional deficits, $22 billion. And what have we done? We've cut $7 billion in that budget for this year. Now, where's the other $14 billion going to come from? You know, we have pie-in-the-sky dreams that, you know, well, we're going to do better in revenue to the extent of $1.5 billion. We're going to do better, we're going to sell a lot of real estate for $1.4 billion. The federal government is going to give us $5.4 billion. You know, I mean, this is all dreamland, ladies and gentlemen, but it's what's going on in Sacramento, which is dreamland. Now, you have a choice. You can either go on with the dreamers, or you can get real. And I would strongly suggest that you get real. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, well, let's get real for a minute. For a second. We at the state have actually reduced state spending by 20% in the last couple of years. Now, that 20% reduction comes with a cost, and it has cost us in terms of jobs. The state and local governments right now are laying off people, we're furloughing people, we're reducing their pay, and that adds to the unemployment rate. And we're seeing that here, right here in Vallejo, with the layoff of police officers and firefighters. Anybody notice, I think it was in the state of Wisconsin last week, the local fire department watched a family's house burn down? Tennessee, thank you. They watched a family's house burn down because that family had not paid a $75 firefighting fee that year. That's where we're headed if we continue in this direction. That's what's real. That's what's real, folks. Closing down our state parks, the governor wanted to close almost every park in the state last year. Close them down. That was the first step towards privatizing our state parks. Our state parks are not just redwoods. They're not just creeks. They're not just beaches. They're also our history. And they're our education for our children, for the next generation of Californians. But he wanted to close them down and sell them off. And let's get real again. We did just sell state buildings for over $1.4 billion. In fact, the state building in the city of Santa Rosa, where my Sonoma County office is located, was just sold out from under me. That's going to cost the state more over the long run than the $1.4 billion that we just got, because we're going to have to lease back that property from the new owners, from the private owners. So your taxpayer money is going to go to line the pockets of some wealthy landowner that probably doesn't even live in the state of California and pay taxes here. That's what's real.
Thank you. Someone Evans. Do you support Proposition 19, which would allow people over 21 to possess and cultivate and or transport marijuana for personal use? Why or why not?
All right, the question is about Prop 19. Personally, I will vote for it. I'm not out campaigning for it. Polls that I've seen show that it is very likely to pass. And in order to get real, we've got to get real on what we're going to do about Prop 19 once it gets passed. We have to get smart about how we regulate it. We have to get smart about how we tax it. We have to get smart about how we enforce the laws within the borders of the state of California. And we have to get smart about how we're going to work with the federal government, whose laws prohibit the use of marijuana. So if we're going to be real and we're going to address what is really out there, this is likely to pass, and we have got to get real about how we deal with it. The one last thing I want to mention about this is in the state Senate district that we're both running for, Lake County, Humboldt County, Mendocino County, those three counties have, the green triangle. They have some of the highest unemployment rates, and yet they have a black market economy that works for them. And so whoever is senator is going to have to deal with that very real problem up there in the northern part of this district. And it is a very real problem. I've talked to a lot of landowners. I've walked property with a lot of forest owners. And there are some very real, very illegitimate, very dangerous, and very dirty growing operations happening in our mountains right now and on our back roads. And we have got to get real about how we deal with those, because they're not only law enforcement problems, but they're also environmental problems. They're converting creeks, they're diverting water from creeks, and they are dirtying the water that the rest of us use. Plus they're creating erosion problems. There's some very, very real law enforcement problems that we're going to have to get real about in the 2nd Senate District.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad it brought Get Real in. I've heard that echoing through this chamber for quite a little while now.
My favorite thing.
Yeah, it is. It's great. Get Real. Here's another Get Real for you. As a society, we have been against smoking. Now, we said smoking is bad for you. Secondhand smoke is bad for you. All this stuff is bad for you. Well, let me tell you, folks, when you smoke a joint, it's bad for you. So here again, I'll help Noreen out. Get real. And if you want to know what's going on up north, I owned a piece of timberland in Edwardsburg, California. It's on the Mattole drainage basin. I had neighbors completely surrounding me growing marijuana. As a matter of fact, Tom Hessler had 3 plantations on my property. Tom was also on welfare. It's unbelievable what we're doing to the state and to our children with marijuana cultivation in my district. Now, if you believe that this is proper use for adults, that's your belief. But I'll tell you what, it's ruinous for the poor people in my district. I have mothers coming to me all the time saying, marijuana was one thing, but the methadone clinics that we have for heroin addicts in Ukiah is unbelievable. We've got 2 clinics in Ukiah, a very small town. They had to open a second one in the southern part of that town, and the mothers were upset about it. They didn't want those people there. Well, what is that drug? Is that drug also what we're going to jump to next and say, fine, heroin's good. They do it in England, we can do it here too. Thank you.
Mr. Wiesner, do you support Proposition 25, which require a simple majority to pass budget and budget-related legislation and 2/3 vote for taxes? And if passed, how do you see the 2 different requirements working in conjunction with each other?
I supported Prop 13 way back when. My party told me I was nuts, but I said, you can't throw people out on the street because they can't pay their property tax. And that was what was happening in Contra Costa County at the time. And they said, well, we're just going to have to do with it. I said, baloney. That's totally improper. So we passed Prop 13. And Prop 13 has continued to guarantee those families that are retired, those older people, that they can keep their home. We've done a great job here in California under Prop 13, and we can continue to survive and do well as it dictates. Now, we have legislators in Sacramento who go around that proposition. You all know that in June of this year, you paid 18 cents a gallon on your excise tax for gasoline. Little did you know that in July, that excise tax jumped to 35.3 cents a gallon, 100% increase. But that wasn't an increase in a tax, because the state said, we're not going to charge sales tax on gasoline anymore. So that's 6% times the $3 is 18 cents. So we'll just, add that onto the excise tax. And that was for this legislator sitting here next to me could take that money and put it in the general fund. And the cities, the League of California Cities said, all you're doing is providing funds for the state general fund and taking it away from the cities. So when she talks about bringing money down to the city and the counties, Our legislation doesn't back it up. Thank you very much.
Could you repeat the second half of the question? I heard
Sure.
Prop 25.
If the taxes, I'm sorry. Do you support Proposition 25, which requires a simple majority to pass the budget and budget-related legislation, and a two-thirds vote for taxes? And if passed, how do you see the two different requirements working in conjunction?
Okay, because Prop 25 doesn't affect the two-thirds vote for taxes at all. Prop 25, the only thing it does is it restores majority vote to the legislature to pass a budget. Does not affect taxes or fees at all. Those are, well, taxes would still require a two-thirds vote. Existing law would still apply to fees depending on what kind of a fee it is. It's either a majority vote or a two-thirds vote. So Prop 25 doesn't change that. And it is an outright falsehood to say that it does. And it's not coming from me, it's coming from a Superior Court judge that ruled that. So Prop 25, in my opinion, is the number one thing that we can do to restore some level of functionality to our state government. With respect to, I believe it's Prop 26 that changes the vote necessary for fees. Basically, that is, thank you. Basically, that is a way to get around AB 32. Now, there's a bunch of things on your ballot. AB 32, Proposition 23 seeks to overturn AB 32. AB 32 is the green technology legislation that we passed and I co-authored back in 2004. A very, very important piece of legislation. What Prop 26 is designed to do is to prevent the state from assessing fees on polluters. That is the reason it is on the ballot. And I would urge a no vote on that proposition and an aye vote on Proposition 25.
Thank you.